The sun was dropping slow behind the Cochise hills when Roger Barnett stepped out his truck with an AR-15 in his hands. The wind kicked up sand while Spanish voices begged him not to shoot. Kids were crying. A man tried to explain, but Barnett wasn't listening. He stood there yelling, calling them trespassers, calling them worse. It wasn't a drug bust. It wasn't a cartel raid. It was a family on state land scared for their lives. And the man pointing the rifle, he wasn't law enforcement. He was just a rancher tired of being crossed. This is the story of Roger Barnett, the Arizona rancher who declared war on smugglers. Down in Cochise County, Arizona, the land stretches wide and silent, just miles from the Mexican border. The ground there is dry and rough, the type that cuts through boots and pride. For years, this was ranch country, a place of cattle herds, windmills, and the sound of old diesel trucks rattling through mesquite trails. But by the late 1990s, that quiet started changing. See, the U.S. had locked down the busy crossing points in places like San Diego and El Paso. The fences got higher, the patrols got tighter, and the flow of people heading north didn't stop. It just shifted. Suddenly, that lonely stretch of Arizona desert became the new highway for everyone chasing work, freedom, or a second shot at life. Hundreds of miles of open desert, no lights, no cities, just stars and silence. For some, it was their last walk. By 2000, the area around Douglas and Naco turned into what Border Patrol called the Avenue of Choice. Thousands were moving through, led by coyotes who knew every dry creek and ridgeline. But along with the desperate came the dangerous. Cartel runners used the same routes to haul dope, and scouts with radios watched the trails. Ranchers who once waved to neighbors now carry rifles on their ATVs. One of those ranchers, Roger Barnett, told a reporter, "It's a war zone out here." And he wasn't lying. Barbed fences got cut night after night, gates were left open, and cattle wandered off or died from eating trash left behind. Water tanks were drained dry by travelers dying of thirst.
He says they have severely damaged his 22,000-acre property by leaving trash, cutting fences, and destroying water tanks.
Some ranchers even found their pumps smashed or stolen for parts. The anger started building like desert heat in July. Cochise County Sheriff's calls were backed up for hours. Deputies had to cover hundreds of miles of dirt road with only a few patrol cars. When someone said help was coming, it might mean tomorrow, and the folks out there felt forgotten. To them, Washington was 1,000 miles away and didn't care if they were overrun. The mood turned sour. You could hear it in the coffee shops in Sierra Vista, in the feed stores, in the bars. People talking about how the border was gone, how the law didn't reach this far south anymore. To the ranchers, it wasn't politics. It was personal. It was about waking up and finding 20 people walking across your pasture or opening your barn to see strangers hiding inside. It was about footprints on your porch, about dogs barking all night. Every one of those moments chipped away at the trust that held the border towns together. And in the middle of all that frustration was a man named Roger Barnett. Back then, he wasn't famous, just another Arizona rancher with a bad temper and a bigger patch of land. But the way things were going, that was about to change. Roger Barnett was born in Bisbee, Arizona, a small mining town that sits up near the mountains. Folks who knew him said he wasn't always angry. He'd served as a Cochise County Sheriff's deputy back in the 70s, then switched gears and started a towing and propane business in Sierra Vista. For a while, life was steady. He made his money, raised a family, and in 1996, bought himself a dream, 22,000 acres called the Crossrail Ranch, northeast of Douglas. At first, it was just cattle and quiet, the kind of life a man works for. But that peace didn't last long. By 1998, the crossings had turned his ranch into a freeway. He'd wake up to see trails of footprints near his windmills. Water barrels were cracked open. Trash spread everywhere. Sometimes people broke into his house when he was gone, just looking for shelter. At first, he called Border Patrol, but the calls started to feel useless. They were understaffed and stretched thin, and by the time they showed up, the people were gone. Barnett started feeling like no one was protecting him, like he'd been left out there on his own. And that feeling of being forgotten, of having to handle it yourself, started to twist something inside him. He'd been a lawman once, but now the law felt too slow. So he dusted off his guns, kept them close, and began patrolling his land himself. He'd tell reporters later, "I'm the victim here. This is my land, and when the government can't protect it, I will." That was the spark that lit the fuse. Roger Barnett wasn't just guarding cattle anymore. He was gearing up for something else entirely, a personal war in the desert that would make him a hero to some and a monster to others. By the late 1990s, things on the Crossrail Ranch had gone from stressful to straight up wild. Roger Barnett was dealing with daily intrusions on his property. Like every other morning, he would find new footprints, torn fences, or empty water barrels scattered around. He started keeping a notebook, marking dates when he found cattle missing or tools stolen from his barn. Sometimes he came home to find doors cracked open, and once his wife Barbara said she heard people whispering outside their window in the middle of the night. Out in the desert near Douglas, Arizona, migrants were dying from dehydration almost every week. The newspapers in Tucson and Phoenix were reporting that over 200 people had been found dead along the border that year, mostly near Cochise County. The U.S. Border Patrol had only a few agents to cover hundreds of square miles, and by the time they got to calls, the people were long gone. Ranchers like Roger felt like they were left to fend for themselves. That was when he linked up with other angry ranchers who felt the same. They started calling themselves the Cochise County Concerned Citizens. It was basically a group of about 24 ranch families who claimed they were just defending their property. But everybody knew what that really meant. They were arming up, patrolling at night, and watching trails like it was a military operation.
I haven't had a complete night's sleep in more than 10 months. 6 months ago, I witnessed some sort of a shootout about a mile from my house. We live in constant fear of being robbed, assaulted, or worse. We must remain armed at all times, because border bandits prey upon the helpless within close proximity of our homes, and armed drug smugglers transport drugs past in the night. We're like prisoners in our own homes.
Then, in early 1999, Roger and his brother Donald helped draft what they called the Barnett Proclamation. It was a letter sent to the government that straight up warned that friction between invaders and property owners may increase to the point of blood being shed. That line caught attention quick. Activists like Isabel Garcia from Tucson called the situation dangerous and volatile, saying it sounded like a war was brewing in the desert. Flyers started circulating too, talking about a neighborhood ranch watch program. They told volunteers to bring radios, spotlights, and night vision gear to help protect private property. Some ranchers claimed it wasn't violent, but others admitted that they were ready to use guns if needed. Roger looked at it all and said, "If they won't protect it, I will." That was the moment he crossed the line from fed-up rancher to self-declared border soldier. By 1999, Roger Barnett wasn't waiting on anyone anymore. He turned his 22,000-acre spread into something that looked more like a mini base camp than a ranch. He spent over $30,000 on motion sensors and hidden detectors along desert trails. He wore a green Border Patrol-style shirt, a camo hat, and strapped a pistol to his hip every morning. On the back of his pickup sat an AR-15, and his dog Mikey rode in the passenger seat, trained to bark when it picked up human scent. He started patrolling with his brother Donald and sometimes his wife Barbara. Folks said they even wore patches that read Patriot Patrol, designed to look like real federal badges. Migrants who ran into him thought they were Border Patrol agents until Roger started yelling. He would roll up on groups walking through the sand, shine his spotlight, and shout for them to sit down. Sometimes he pointed his rifle, sometimes he just showed it off, but it worked. Most people froze in fear. Roger claimed he was helping the government. He said he called Border Patrol every time and handed the migrants over without hurting them. But the stories from the desert told something else. Some said he would hold them for hours, cursing and threatening to sick his dog on them. Others said he took pictures of them for trophies. When Time magazine came to interview him in 2000, he bragged about slamming one man down who tried to walk away. He told the reporter, "We took his photo, a before and after picture, after we beat the S out of him." That quote spread everywhere and shocked people who read it. Still, locals in Cochise County called him a hero. They said he was doing what the government wouldn't. Roger boasted that in 1 year, he had detained over 1,000 migrants, then later started saying the number was closer to 10 or 12,000 total. His stories got bigger every time he talked. National media came calling, and soon journalists were paying him up to $1,000 just to ride along on his patrols. Time magazine ran that famous photo of him walking through the desert with an M16 and his dog. That picture made him a symbol. To some, he looked like a patriot defending the border. To others, he looked like a vigilante playing soldier on stolen land. Mexican newspapers ran headlines calling him El Pistolero del Desierto. Civil rights groups called him dangerous, but the man didn't care. He told anyone who would listen that he was just protecting his property, saying, "If it was your land, you'd do the same." From that point on, Roger Barnett wasn't just a rancher anymore. He was the face of Arizona's border war, patrolling his desert like it was his own personal front line. By 2000, Roger's name was everywhere from Phoenix to Washington. Politicians started dropping by Cochise County to meet him, shake his hand, and use his story for their campaigns. Pat Buchanan, who was running for president on an anti-immigration platform that year, flew out to Arizona and called the ranchers the real patriots protecting America. Photos from that trip hit newspapers nationwide. In Cochise County, Sheriff Larry Dever and County Attorney Ed Reinheimer made it clear they weren't pressing charges on Barnett. They said he was well within his rights to use threats if it meant stopping trespassers. Local radio hosts started calling him the defender of the desert, and callers praised him every morning. On the other hand, the Southern Poverty Law Center and MALDEF called his actions vigilante terrorism. That same year, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee invited Barnett to testify about border security. He showed up wearing his cowboy hat and belt buckle, telling Congress he had turned over more than 1,000 illegal aliens to the Border Patrol. People in the crowd clapped when he finished. In that moment, he went from a local story to a national symbol. As word spread, new groups popped up using his playbook. The Minuteman Project started in 2005, and another militia called Ranch Rescue began patrolling lands in Texas and New Mexico. Many of those volunteers said Barnett inspired them. Mexican media called him El Barnett, the man who hunted migrants like game. The FBI even warned him there might be a bounty on his head from cartel groups. He started carrying his pistol everywhere, even to church on Sundays. Some folks in town admired that, others thought he had lost it. Everyone agreed on one thing though. Roger Barnett had turned the quiet ranch lands of Cochise County into a battleground that nobody could ignore anymore. By early 2004, Roger Barnett had already become a name everyone knew across Cochise County. Border Patrol agents, ranchers, and even human rights lawyers all knew about the man who called himself the desert's gatekeeper. That March, his anger finally crossed from talk to action. It was a warm afternoon near Douglas, Arizona, and a group of 16 Mexican migrants were resting near a sandy wash close to Highway 80. They were tired, dusty, and trying to stay out of the sun. Most of them were farm workers from Sonora heading north, carrying nothing but small bags and water bottles. They didn't know whose land they had stopped on. Then Roger Barnett pulled up in his truck, Dog Mikey barking loud from the passenger seat. He stepped out with his pistol in his hand, and his first words came sharp. Witnesses later said he was shouting in broken Spanish, yelling for everyone to get on the ground. They froze where they stood. The men tried to explain they were just traveling, but Roger wasn't listening. He said they were trespassing and told them he'd shoot if they moved. According to the lawsuit that came later, Barnett walked around waving his gun, cursing, and saying his dog was hungry. He pointed toward Mikey and told them, "Mi perro tiene hambre y tiene hambre de nalgas," which meant, "My dog is hungry and he's hungry for buttocks." People started crying and praying out loud. One woman was on her knees whispering prayers when Barnett allegedly kicked her and told her to shut up. He held those 16 people there for almost 2 hours. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed too hard. Finally, a Border Patrol truck rolled up after Barnett radioed them. When the agents arrived, he holstered his pistol and told them he had everything under control. The migrants were taken into custody quietly, but the fear they felt that day didn't end there. Later, when they got help from lawyers with the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, known as MALDEF, the story hit the papers. They said he threatened them, insulted them, and treated them like animals. Roger told reporters he did nothing wrong, that he only detained them until the real authorities came. But those who heard the story knew this wasn't just rumor anymore. It was the first major sign that his so-called border war had gone too far. That same year, things hit another level. On October 30th, 2004, a 3-generation family from Douglas went out for a hunting trip near the Crossrail Ranch. The Morales family had valid hunting permits and thought they were on state trust land, not private property. The crew included Ron and Arturo Morales, their wives, a family friend named Emma English, and 3 young girls aged 9, 11, and 14. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday out in the desert, but before they could even line up their scopes, a white truck came roaring down the hill toward them. Behind the wheel was Roger Barnett, wearing his camo hat and carrying his AR-15 rifle across his chest. He jumped out yelling before the truck even stopped moving. "You're trespassing. Get off my property before I start shooting," one of the family members remembered him shouting. His voice was shaking with rage. The 3 girls froze on the spot, terrified. Arturo Morales tried to speak, telling Barnett they had legal permits, that this was public land, but Barnett wasn't trying to hear any of it. According to testimony later given in court, he chambered a round in his rifle and shouted, "You're dirty Mexicans. I'm gonna shoot you and shoot you and shoot you." Up on a nearby hill stood his brother Donald, holding a shotgun. From that high ground, it looked like they were surrounded. The family tried to stay calm, packing up their things slowly, but Barnett kept screaming. One of the girls started crying, and Emma English said she saw Barnett pointing his gun directly toward them as they backed away. When they finally made it to their truck and drove off, nobody spoke for a long time. The little girls were shaking. Later, one of the mothers told a reporter that her daughter didn't sleep through the night for months afterward. "He took part of her innocence away," she said. The Morales family reported the incident to authorities right after, but the Cochise County Sheriff's Office didn't press any charges. Locals weren't surprised. Roger had friends in the system, and the sheriff had already said Barnett had the right to defend his property. But this time, it wasn't migrants. These were U.S. citizens, and the story spread fast. Civil rights lawyers stepped in, and by 2005, the Morales family filed a civil lawsuit for assault, false imprisonment, and emotional distress. The Southern Poverty Law Center, known as the SPLC, helped back the case, saying it showed exactly how vigilante culture had gone unchecked in Arizona. During the 2006 trial in Cochise County Superior Court, the jury heard everything. They heard how Barnett pointed a rifle at children, how his brother held a shotgun, and how he called the family racial slurs. Barnett sat in court acting like he didn't care. He told reporters that he was only protecting his land and even bragged about getting 2 Latino jurors removed during jury selection. But that arrogance didn't help him. The jury believed the Morales family. In November 2006, they ordered Barnett, to pay $98,750 in damages for his behavior. Reporters said the jurors didn't buy his version because he kept changing details and couldn't remember what he had shouted that day. Meanwhile, the kids' stories never changed once. It was the first time Roger Barnett had actually been held accountable for one of his confrontations, and the headlines blew up. The Arizona Republic ran stories calling him the border vigilante, and national outlets followed. Some folks in Cochise County still called him a hero, saying he was being punished for defending himself, but others started seeing the truth. Roger Barnett had become the kind of danger he claimed to be fighting. The man who said he was protecting the desert had now turned his gun on his own neighbors. By the time 2005 came around, Roger Barnett already had one lawsuit behind him and a reputation that split Cochise County clean down the middle. The Morales case had shown what kind of man he could be when his temper took control, but the next case would push that spotlight even brighter. It started with the same 2004 confrontation where he detained 16 migrants at gunpoint near Highway 80. That encounter was about to land him in federal court. The Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, known as MALDEF, stepped in to represent several of the migrants. They filed a lawsuit against Roger, his wife Barbara, and his brother Donald, accusing them of assault, false imprisonment, and emotional distress. They called it Vicente vs. Barnett. The claim was simple. He used threats and intimidation on unarmed people who posed no danger. Roger's lawyer fought back hard, saying he acted in self-defense and that the migrants had no right to sue because they were in the country illegally. The judge immediately shut that down, reminding everyone that even undocumented people have rights under U.S. law. The case sat in limbo for a few years before finally reaching trial in February 2009. The presiding judge was Chief U.S. District Judge John M. Rowe, a respected Arizona jurist known for being tough but fair. 6 migrants took the stand during that week-long trial, 5 women and 1 man. Each one described the fear they felt when Roger appeared with his gun and his dog barking at their feet. One woman said she was praying on the ground when Roger kicked her. Another said he pointed his gun near her face and told her to shut up or the dog would bite her. Roger testified too, claiming he never meant to hurt anyone. He said he holstered his pistol after realizing they were unarmed, but when lawyers pressed him about the Spanish insults and threats, he said he couldn't remember what he said. That answer didn't help him. MALDEF's attorneys, including Marisol Perez and David Hinojosa, argued that his so-called self-defense was nothing but intimidation and cruelty. The trial drew attention across Arizona. Civil rights activists filled the courtroom, while anti-immigration supporters stood outside holding signs that said, "Protect the ranchers." The pressure even reached Judge Rowe himself. He began receiving threats from extremist groups angry that he allowed the case to move forward. Federal marshals gave him protection for several weeks. 2 years later, in 2011, that same judge would be tragically killed during the Tucson mass shooting that also wounded Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. When the jury came back, the verdict was mixed but clear. They found Roger Barnett liable for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They didn't convict him of battery or false imprisonment, but the message was still heavy. The jury awarded the 6 migrants a total of $73,352. Roger left the courtroom fuming, telling reporters that he got screwed and that the illegals were being rewarded for breaking into his country. He appealed to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing that he had acted within Arizona law to protect his property. In 2011, the panel of judges rejected his argument completely. They pointed out that even Roger himself admitted that none of the migrants were armed or threatening him. The court increased his total payment to about $87,000 with fees and interest. He tried taking the fight to the Supreme Court, but they refused to hear it. Roger was out of options. The ruling stood. That decision marked a turning point. For the first time, a federal court had drawn a real boundary line between citizen self-defense and vigilante violence. Roger had spent years claiming to be a protector, but now the law had told him exactly what he was not. After that verdict, Roger Barnett faded from the cameras for a while. He stopped giving interviews and stayed close to the ranch. Folks in Cochise County still saw his pickup driving around town sometimes, but the media heat had cooled. He was older now, tired, and more cautious about what he said in public, yet he never backed down from his beliefs. Whenever reporters did catch up with him, he said the same thing. "I was defending my home. That's what any man would do." To his supporters, that sounded fair. They pointed to the 2010 killing of Robert Krentz, another Cochise County rancher shot dead on his own land, likely by a drug smuggler. That tragedy reignited talk about the dangers ranchers faced and made some locals say Roger had been right all along. They said he warned everyone that blood would spill if nothing changed. But critics saw something different. They said Roger's vigilante example had helped fuel the rise of border militias like the Minuteman Project and Ranch Rescue. They said his stories and his interviews encouraged others to take the law into their own hands. By the early 2010, those groups were falling apart under scandals and violent incidents, but their spirit had come from men like him. Sheriff Larry Dever, one of Roger's strongest defenders, died in 2012 in a car crash, and after that, the old Cochise County circle began fading away. By 2015, Barnett rarely appeared at public meetings anymore. Rumors spread that his health was declining, but his image still floated around whenever border politics came up. Activists on both sides used his story. Some called him a patriot who protected the forgotten. Others called him a racist relic of a darker time. His defenders liked to remind people that Roger never shot anyone, but everyone knew that the fear he created across that desert had a life of its own. It still lingers in every story told about the border's wild years. If you drive out to Cochise County now, the desert still looks the same. The wind still moves the dust, and the fences still cut across the horizon. Somewhere out there, Roger Barnett's old trails still run through the mesquite, quiet and dry. He once said, "You must know what you are getting into." Maybe he did, but the ones who crossed his path never asked for that lesson. The Morales children who faced his rifle still remember those screams. The migrants from the Vicente case still remember that dog barking in the dark. He said he was defending his land, and maybe he believed it, but somewhere between fear and pride, he turned defense into aggression. The desert doesn't keep score though, it just waits for the next man who thinks he can control it. Roger Barnett's story leaves one question that never fades. Was he protecting his home, or did he simply lose control of it? Either way, his shadow still stretches across the borderlands. If you made it this far, hit subscribe for more real stories about power, fear, and the people who test the edge of justice.